Everyone is talking about artificial intelligence and what it'll mean for the workforce. And now that we've had time to understand the technological leap that's been made, we thought it would be worth exploring how the workplace landscape can change and who might be affected. Hello, and welcome to Of Significance, the podcast that's procedurally generated from the support of listeners like you, as well as 10,000 gallons of water. I'm your everyman host, Brent right here with two data experts who understood big data before it taught itself to get bigger, Drs. Nathan Woods and Dr. Steve Bronars. Nathan, why don't you kick us off with how you've been thinking about the application of AI to different parts of the labor force?
Well, I got a question based on something we talked about, I don't know, back in 2025. And the main takeaway that I had is that Steve has strong feelings about certain majors and your likelihood of being employed and how well you might be paid based on having those majors. And this popped into my head a little bit because as a result of some of the stuff that we get with our kids reaching a certain age and thinking about colleges and all of that, something came across our radar on which majors are going to be the most affected by AI. The poor kids that are coming out of college right now, AI kind of hit them in the middle of it. But kids like mine maybe get to choose their major knowing that AI is theoretically going to take over the world. And the question is, what majors, what kinds of work do you think are going to be the most affected? What would you tell your kids if they were getting into college right now about what major they should have or not have?
I think that I would always encourage them to go into something that was more quantitative and analytical. And, obviously you want them to go into something that interests them. I don't think I would base it too much on the current, and we can talk about in a little bit more detail, the current view of how it might affect the employment situation, because it's so fluid and dynamic that, that might be something that you would take into account a little bit, but you really should go into something where you feel like you're really interested in it and you have showing some talent in it, because I think you can adapt to the tools. It might change the way you do your work, but I still would think that analytical, technical, quantitative stuff is where there's always going to be demand for that stuff.
Is there a difference you would have recommended before AI was thrown into the equation? Wouldn't you have said the same thing when it comes to
the same thing? And I think there's a debate. I see these economics papers. Are these innovations going to take jobs away from some of these fields, or is it going to raise the productivity and, using analogies to other time periods with other, innovations, cause there to be even more work done in that area? I think your workday will definitely be different when AI is integrated more than it would be in the past, but maybe there's going to be even more work to be done using AI as a tool. It's like, obviously it's way more than just using the internet, but the internet made it easier to search and find things, documents, data that's out there. And it's like definitely a huge tool. And yeah, I'm sure it has cost some people jobs because they would have spent time going to the library for you and gathering all this, but it just makes everything so much more productive that's those sectors, information and technology, just grow even more. So I think it's hard to say.
I don't know which majors are the most vulnerable to AI, but should I feel bad that your job is at risk from AI when you used AI to get your degree? If you're using AI to write your papers.
I don't know that anybody should feel bad for anybody. It's more, but that's interesting because I think another dimension of this.
By not being empathetic, your job is at risk, because you didn't sound very empathetic there.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people who graduated before AI and now have their job and AI has shown up.
That's always going to be the case, that I invested in this thing and now it's somewhat obsolete. You have to just keep learning. Just because you're out of school doesn't mean nothing else is going to change. So it is a challenge for them. I agree.
Yeah. And I think and I think this is the point you're making, Steve, which is there are sort of core fundamental themes that you would say are gonna prevail anyway. The work's not going to go entirely away; it's going to change. But if you've got those fundamental skills that are in demand, you'll still be in demand post AI. But I think, Brent, to your point, there's another question about what to do with AI as part of preparing to go off to college or think about a career. And I think some of these same sources would say, whatever you do, don't pretend it's not happening, right? And it's kind of interesting just in the school situations of my kids. One is more, yeah, that's fine, embrace it, with some loose kind of guardrails. They don't want you to have AI write your papers entirely or anything like that, but they're encouraging you to use it as a tool to be comfortable with it. And at the other school, it's a little more, well, we're not quite there yet. And actually, we'd rather you not have AI help you write your papers, and we're going to have you do more papers, in class, blue book kinds of written exams, as opposed to having you go to your house and write that 5-page essay. So it's very interesting, the different approaches. But I think, tell me what you guys think, but I would say go ahead and get comfortable with AI, because it's going to be a part of your life no matter what.
If you're not learning how to use AI, and it's weird. I think it's weird right now that we even call it AI. It probably should be better called like just machine learning or language learning models, because it's not.
Or just the future.
It's just the future. But you should probably be learning all those new skills and stuff. I do think, though, that when you look at some of the majors where people's careers are already being affected, a lot of the creative, like design type work, writing type work, to me, these were already careers that were extraordinarily competitive. And so it's hard to say you were making a ton of money either way, doing that kind of work, but it's part of, I think, the joy of being a human being is creating. And then, if you have a liberal society, you might be able to make money from it. I wonder how those jobs are going to shift and change in terms of the work that's expected for them and what kind of opportunities exist, given that AI is just so cheap.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. When I was thinking more was, I hear people, not really hear them, but you see on social media saying, people are saying, you got to learn to code, And now a lot of the coding jobs are going to go away because AI can code really well. And they have these, the ability for them to write code to do stuff that used to be somebody's job. But I still think you need to know how to code in order to see what you're getting back. The analogy that I would use, not so much on the creative arts part, but for the more technical stuff, Nathan, you will appreciate this, I think, is the idea that we're using this statistical software and all the statistical function stuff and analyses are all packaged.
You're not doing that by hand?
You're not doing it by you go,
Steve's like, let me get my abacus real quick.
Thank goodness I don't have to be like writing code to invert matrices and do all this other kind of stuff that's done behind the scenes in, fractions of a second. You just say the, regress command or something. And, you go back in time, people that's kind of like, you don't really understand it as well as, you know what I'm talking about, Nathan.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like, I was there when we, had to do it this way. And in some sense, you did understand better what was going on because you had to help build the stuff and tell the machine to do a certain task. And now,
but how much did you really need to know about inverting matrices?
Right. And now you can focus on understanding some deeper points that come after that and interpreting the model output and all that. And you're spending less of your time on the nuts and bolts of getting there, which I think it's good and it's bad. It's like, it's good to free up that time, but it's bad because people can use it and they don't really understand it maybe as well as ideally would be, you'd hope, and so, and they may get some output back from either a statistical package or the AI, and they don't have the ability to realize this is kind of junk and makes sense, which requires, a different type of knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's the other takeaway from some of the what people are saying about how your judgment should change as you're thinking about college majors now is you definitely want, I think, something that is going to require some discernment, some judgment, so that in the end it's not just the mechanical piece of it that might be easier to have AI or whatever those other things that Brent mentioned that I would
Machine learning, or
I would just call
yeah.
those the future.
Sure.
But yeah, you definitely want to have a job that is going to require, or a major that's going to lead to a job that's going to require your judgment. And if your judgment is not needed, then that's probably not going to be a great job for you in the long run.
All right, Nathan, I want you to pick between me and Steve. You have to replace one of us with AI. Which one are you replacing?
Just give me a moment here to type that in.
Yeah, GPT says.
To me, I think that I am totally sold on the idea of driverless cars. That's the way to go. You have a bunch of cars just sitting there not being used. Let's get them to take people around to where they want to go. They're going to drive better, safer. But I think it takes longer to get there because people are not just willing and able to switch right away. So I know that it seems like, before you know it, we're all going to be
just to be
replaced
clear,
by robots.
You said longer to get there in terms of like our acceptance, or the Waymo is going to get me lost?
Yeah, our acceptance.
Okay.
That it, some people use it, and I think we're very close to it, but like, how many years would it be before the majority of the people are riding around in driverless cars? I think it's gonna be quite a while, right, before that happens. Other people say, "Oh, we're right around the corner from that," because it's the rate at which some of this stuff is adopted that matters as well. Like, it could replace a bunch of jobs, but people have to buy into that's what we wanna do, and so, I don't know, like, all these other jobs that are gonna affect these college majors, yeah, maybe it's possible AI takes your job, but there has to be decisions made by the businesses that that's how we're gonna go, and, they may not, like, jump in right away and say, "We're just gonna stop hiring people and using
Right.
AI agents to do all this stuff."
Don't economists talk about like the lump of labor fallacy, that you've got, some workers who are always just going to be able to do only one kind of work? I mean, is there anything new with respect to the possibility of like a generalized intelligence as far as like the kind of jobs people are going to be able to satisfy if you really could have an unsleeping, unstopping, superpowered intelligence that's churning out all the answers that we need?
I think that, it may be the case that this is like a change that's so dramatic, it's unlike anything we've seen in the past, and so you can't just say, "Well, we've adapted to the internal combustion engine and the, uh, computers and the internet and all these other changes, and this might be bigger, but we've adjusted in the past." Um, so, yeah, it's possible that this is just gonna be so revolutionary. I think there's a lot of, debate and disagreement on it. I think that what I'm hearing is there's this apprehension about it, and so there's a ton of bills that are going through different state legislatures, to try to regulate this, and it may be, something where even if we in the US decide we have to put some guardrails on, around the world, this stuff could be developing, and so how much control do we really have over wherever we're headed with this? Um, so I don't know how it's all gonna play out, but yeah, I think if you compare it to Industrial Revolution, other, monumental changes, we were able to adapt. And is this gonna be, like, completely so much beyond something like that? It's gonna be, just take over and robots are gonna take over? Probably not, but there's a chance that it could really just totally change
So you're
things.
saying there's a chance.
So I'm saying there's a chance.
Well, I think Steve, based on what you would encourage your kids to be doing, quantitative kinds of applications, you would say being an economist is still worthwhile, even in the world of AI, or at least as worthwhile as it ever was.
I'm glad my kids didn't go into economics, but yes, it's in the range of things that you could do.
I think we talked, and again, this is going back to an episode from last year, but we talked a little bit about some of these jobs that had, higher levels of employment, lower levels of underemployment, nursing being one of them. That's definitely kind of in the list of things that seems like it should go on just fine. People that are hands-on, empathetic, showing judgment in their jobs.
Yeah, so it's important now. Stop learning to code. Start learning to hammer. Pick up some tools.
Be an empathetic coder.
These machines can't twist knobs and flick on light switches.
That is what Steve's kids do, right?
Yeah, they work on that kind of stuff. And it's interesting that, which I probably told you this before, but the language, the large language models, there's so much written word out there on the internet to train the AI. Whereas these jobs that you're talking about that are more physical, they're more specific to particular tasks. And so training the robot to do those tasks requires a huge investment for, twisting this knob and hammering this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, you just a bunch of videos on the internet showing people doing that, and you can train a robot just that way. So it's a big issue with that. But I think that an issue we didn't talk about is that it takes a tremendous amount of GPU or whatever kind of processing units they're using these days, and data centers and energy and building stuff. And so you're right that you have to construct these facilities that are needed in order to fuel these huge data centers. And we don't have the robots to build those buildings yet. And, we need the resources to help facilitate that, because it's going to be a huge increase in demand for electricity and things like that just to power all this stuff.
Well, and at some point we're going to have to choose, right, between AI and Bitcoin.
I don't think we have to choose. Don't make us choose between the best of all possible worlds.
I don't know enough about that, but yeah, the Bitcoin requires a lot of energy too.
I mean, as long as we, the artificial intelligence is going to steal the nuclear codes, if we just don't give them the power to use keys, we're going to be safe.
That's what I learned from Tom Cruise.
Well, that's been this episode of Significance. This episode's been brought to you by Edgeworth Economics, a leader in economic consulting, and with the help of our producers, Kimberly Krewald, Ryan Deal, and Brian McLamara of Brand Ready Media, with music by Armwell Lang. Thanks for listening, StatPack, and always remember to check your assumptions.